You just shared something you're proud of, and within seconds you watch their face do something small, not obvious, just a flicker, a half smile that doesn't reach their eyes. Then they say something that sounds harmless, something like, "Oh, that's nice," but the way they say it makes your stomach drop. And now you're standing there, still holding your good news, but it feels lighter, smaller, like they took something from it without ever touching it. You tell yourself you're overthinking.
You tell yourself they didn't mean it that way, but your body knows. There's a tightness in your chest that wasn't there before. A quiet voice asking, was I showing off? Should I have said it differently? And the worst part is, you can't even explain what just happened, because nothing obvious happened. They didn't insult you. They didn't yell. They just made you feel less than you were 2 minutes ago. This is what it feels like to be around someone who puts others down, not with cruelty.
With precision. They don't raise their voice, they lower your confidence, they don't argue with you. They dismiss you so subtly, you start dismissing yourself. And over time, you stop sharing things. You edit your words before speaking. You shrink your excitement so it won't take up too much space. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being visible around them feels dangerous. But here's what you probably don't know. That feeling you carry after talking to them, that quiet heaviness.
It's not because of anything you did wrong. It's because of something they can't face in themselves. People who habitually put others down are not confident people. They are terrified people. And your presence, your growth, your joy, it exposes something in them they've been running from their entire life. The belief that they are not enough. Let me show you what's really happening. When someone makes you feel small without saying anything directly cruel, your mind scrambles for an explanation.
You replay the conversation, you analyze the tone, you wonder if you misread it. And this confusion is not an accident, it's part of the pattern. Because people who put others down rarely do it loudly, they do it carefully. A joke that lands just wrong, a compliment with a hook hidden inside it. A question that sounds innocent but leaves you defending yourself. And the brilliance of it, if you can call it that, is this: you can't prove anything happened.
So you start to believe the problem is you, your sensitivity, your insecurity, your need for validation. But let me tell you what's actually happening. What you're experiencing is not sensitivity, it's accuracy. Your nervous system is picking up on something your mind hasn't named yet. A power shift, a quiet act of repositioning where they place themselves slightly above you and you slightly below. And they do this not because you deserve it, but because they need it. Here's the truth. Most people never say out loud. People who make others feel inferior are deeply afraid of being seen as inferior themselves. And that fear doesn't live in their thoughts. It lives in their body. It's automatic, unconscious. The moment you share good news, succeed at something, or even just seem comfortable in your own skin, their system reacts, not with joy, with threat. Because to them, your confidence is not inspiring. It's destabilizing. Your happiness is not contagious. It's confronting. Your growth does not motivate them. It terrifies them. Because if you're moving forward and they feel stuck, then the gap between you becomes visible. And that gap, that comparison, it's unbearable. So they do the only thing that gives them relief. They shrink you, just enough, just for a moment, so they can breathe again. This pattern didn't start with you. It started long before you ever met them.
Most people who put others down grew up in homes where worth was measured, not given, where love felt conditional, where being good enough meant being better than someone else. Maybe they had a sibling who got more attention. Maybe they had a parent who only noticed mistakes. Maybe they lived in a world where approval was rare and criticism was constant. And in that environment, they learned something devastating. They learned that safety doesn't come from being yourself. It comes from being superior. So they adapted, not by becoming confident, by becoming comparative. They stopped asking, "Am I okay?" and started asking, "Am I better than them?" And that question, it never stops. It becomes the lens through which they see every interaction, every achievement, every person. This is why they can't celebrate you. Because celebrating you means admitting you have something they don't. And admitting that feels like losing. When you understand this, their behavior stops feeling personal. It starts feeling predictable. You begin to notice the patterns, how their comments get sharper when they feel uncertain, how their tone changes when you're too happy, how they bring up your past mistakes when you're doing well in the present. It's not random, it's regulation, emotional regulation. They are using you to manage feelings they don't know how to sit with. And the tragedy is, it never works.
Because putting someone else down doesn't build you up. It just gives you a few seconds of relief before the insecurity returns. So they have to do it again, and again, and again. which is why you feel like you're always walking on eggshells. Because you are, not because you're fragile, because they are. Let me tell you what happens to you when you're around this person long enough. At first, you just feel confused. You wonder why their words sting when they weren't even that harsh. But over time, something shifts. You start hearing their voice in your head, not when they're around, when you're about to try something new, when you're about to share something you're proud of. You hear them, doubting you, questioning you, minimizing you. And the worst part is, you don't even realize it's happening, because that's how internalization works. You absorb the criticism so deeply it becomes your inner voice. You start doing their job for them,
shrinking yourself, editing yourself, doubting yourself, all without them saying a word. And this is the real damage, not the comments, the erosion, the slow, quiet dismantling of your self-trust. You stop believing in your instincts. You second-guess your decisions. You apologize for taking up space. You dim your light so you won't threaten anyone. And you do all of this while thinking it's humility. But it's not humility. It's survival. You learn that being big around them feels dangerous. So you made yourself small. And now, even when they're not around, you stay small, just in case. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, you can write me in the comments. You don't need to explain. One word is enough. Here's what most people don't realize. The person putting you down is not doing it from a place of strength. They're doing it from a place of panic. Because people who are genuinely secure don't need to diminish others. They don't feel threatened by someone else's success.
They don't track who's ahead and who's behind. They don't need to correct, compete, or compare. Secure people can sit in a room with someone more talented, more confident, more successful, and feel nothing but curiosity, maybe even admiration. But people who put others down can't do that, because their entire sense of worth is built on a ranking system. And in that system, there's only room for one person at the top. So when you rise, they don't see growth. They see displacement.
They don't see your win. They see their loss. This is why silence makes them uncomfortable. Silence forces them to sit with themselves. And that's the last place they want to be. So they fill the space with judgment, with correction, with subtle reminders of hierarchy. They interrupt. They one-up. They reposition every conversation so they end up slightly above you. And if you ever challenge them, if you ever refuse to shrink, something shifts. They don't get curious. They get defensive.
Because for them, disagreement doesn't feel like dialogue. It feels like danger. It feels like you're threatening the only thing holding their identity together, the belief that they are better. So they double down. They get sharper, more dismissive, more critical. Because the most terrifying thing for someone who needs to feel superior is meeting someone who doesn't play inferior. So what do? How do you protect yourself without becoming cold?
How do you set boundaries without needing to explain them? First, you stop personalizing their behavior. This is not about you. It never was. Their words are not a reflection of your value. They're a reflection of their fear, and you are not responsible for managing that fear. Second, you stop reacting. Reaction feeds the dynamic. When you defend yourself, explain yourself, or try to prove yourself, you're giving them exactly what they need. Your emotional response, your doubt,
your need for their approval. And the moment you stop giving that, the power shifts. Third, you observe. You watch the pattern instead of absorbing it. You notice how their criticism spikes when you're doing well, how their tone changes when you're too confident, how they need you to be uncertain so they can feel steady. And once you see it clearly, it stops landing the same way. Because here's the truth. You don't need their validation. You never did.
You just thought you did because they trained you to seek it. But validation from someone who feels threatened by you is not validation, it's control. And you don't need permission to take up space. Let me tell you what happens when you stop shrinking. At first, they might get worse. They might criticize more, they might accuse you of changing, of being different, of thinking you're better than them. And in a way, they're right. You are different.
Because you stopped playing a game you never agreed to. You stopped making yourself small so they could feel big. And that to them feels like betrayal. But here's what happens next. The people who actually value you will adjust. They'll respect the boundary. They'll meet you where you are. And the people who needed you small, they'll fade. Not always loudly, sometimes just quietly. A little more distance, a little less contact. And that's not a loss, that's clarity.
Because not everyone who's in your life deserves to stay there. Some people are only present because you made it easy for them. You absorbed their discomfort. You managed their insecurity. You stayed small so they wouldn't feel threatened. But the moment you stop doing that work for them, the relationship reveals its foundation. And sometimes that foundation was never mutual respect. It was control. This doesn't mean you become harsh, it means you become honest.
You stop pretending certain behaviors are acceptable just because they're familiar. You stop excusing people just because you understand their wounds. Because understanding someone's pain does not mean volunteering to carry it. Here's the part that changes everything. People who genuinely like themselves do not enjoy making others feel small. They don't need to. Their worth is not built on comparison. It's built on presence. And presence is something no one can take from you. Not with words.
Not with tone, not with dismissal. Because once you see this pattern clearly, once you understand what's driving it, it loses its grip. You stop asking, what did I do wrong? And you start asking, what is this really about? And in that moment, the dynamic collapses. Because you're no longer participating, you're no longer feeding their need for superiority with your doubt. And that quiet refusal, that calm, grounded presence, it's the most unsettling thing for someone who relies on imbalance. Because they can't diminish what refuses to shrink. Over time, you'll notice something. You'll stop replaying conversations in your head. You'll stop editing your words before you speak. You'll stop apologizing for being excited, for being proud, for being visible. Not because you became arrogant,
but because you stopped outsourcing your worth to people who were never qualified to measure it. And the voice in your head, the one that sounded like them, it fades, slowly, quietly, until one day you realize it's gone, and the only voice left is yours. Clear, steady, unshaken. In the end, the psychology of people who put others down reveals something simple. They are not above you. They are beneath their own fear, and you are not here to carry that fear for them.
Your presence does not need to be earned. Your voice does not need to be approved. Your worth does not need to be compared. The moment you stop accepting emotional subtraction as normal, everything shifts, quietly, permanently, because the most powerful response to someone who tries to make you small is standing fully in who you are, without explanation, without apology, and without leaving yourself behind.
In the next video, we'll talk about what happens when you finally stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening, because this pattern never exists alone. And once you recognize it, you start seeing it everywhere.